Yes. So Fox News went just full reefer madness in this regard. I'm gonna play the video and we'll just watch it along the way and just it's 2022. Let's just remember that before we go into the video. The year is 2022. It is not 1960. This is 2022 when this video was released.
In the headlines, and for that we turn to Fox News contributor Raymond Arroyo, who has a special report on crime and drug use in New York City.
Laura, you have been covering the connection between even recreational drug use like marijuana and crime. Well, here in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams has long been a proponent of marijuana use.
One of my best gifts, as you know, marijuana is legal. I have raw.
I did not know.
I have raw.
I am not aware, Mr. Mayor. I'm not into that scene.
I have bamboo.
Oh,
you know,
big.
And I can't give you this gift. I'll give it to you later, you know.
Now, Laura, no matter where you go in this city, even in the morning, as we did the other day, drugs are everywhere. People are brazenly...
So just before they get into it, like, for one, they conflate drug use with just marijuana very frequently throughout this segment. But yeah, you know, was that like a little cheesy between who was that, Eric Adams and Stephen Colbert? It's a little cheesy, but like I think that we'll just play it. We'll just play it.
All manner of substances right out in the open, and drug use is not the only thing rising. Since last year, crime has exploded here in New York City. Rapes are up 27%, robberies 33%, and now the mayor has a new idea to teach people how to use drugs safely, kind of a tutorial. He's instituted the plan, but given...
Trying to raise awareness about how people cannot die from fentanyl overdoses is like very, very important. Like I don't know, this like old war on drugs mentality of just like you can't acknowledge that drug use happens. It just must all be criminalized. Marijuana is just as bad as fentanyl. It's just it's insane. It's led to a lot of deaths, frankly, because the war on drugs leads to people they can't get drugs through legal means, so they go to the black market to get drugs. And that's where you see things that are cut with fentanyl and things like that. And then people die from overdose because they don't realize they're taking something that has fentanyl laced into it, but then they accidentally do, and then they die. And so it's both this is both a humorous bit from Fox News, but also it is, you know, they're actually policy prescriptions are actually very damaging.
The connection between violence and drug use, is this a good idea? We asked New Yorkers what they thought.
Are we now criminalizing marijuana again?
No, they've legalized it here in New York.
Good.
In fact, your mayor just started a program for safe drug use. Is that a good idea?
Yes, it is. I am of the opinion you should have all drugs be legal.
Tell me your experience with
Shout out to that guy. Shout out to that guy getting interviewed.
crime in the city. You're in New York.
Yes, I hate it. The entire city is a jungle, and we are at risk. I don't even take the subway. I'm afraid to go under.
The general sort of state of the city has slipped. It's dirtier, more homeless people.
In the recent months, definitely an uptick in crimes.
I think that I have a lot of ostensibly liberal cities done a bad job at dealing with homelessness. San Francisco, New York, have they done a bad job? Absolutely. That's not an argument for criminalizing drugs, though. That's frankly because a lot of these places that have homelessness, drugs are still criminalized. What it is an advocate for is ending homelessness, giving people that are homeless shelter. Like that is it is as simple as that. The housing first method, it has worked in Finland. It has almost eradicated homelessness in the country. Places in the U.S. that have tried to do a housing first policy have also seen some pretty big successes. It's not going after drugs.
Myself, I just got spat on by a home.
And also, like, addiction is a real issue. That's why we should have access to rehab centers, free. It should be free to go to a rehab center and to get the treatment you need. Like that should absolutely be available to people. When you have drugs that are criminalized, you will have people that won't go to rehab. They won't go to see a doctor. They won't go and do like that's why a lot of places will have amnesty for if you for example in the town that I went to college in, the hospital had if somebody went, like if someone that was under the age of 21 went to the hospital with like alcohol poisoning or something like that, they wouldn't get in any trouble, because it's to say, like, if you're under the age of 21, you have alcohol poisoning, just go to the hospital. Just don't worry about the criminal. Go to the hospital and so that you can be taken care of. We don't want people to, because they're worried about the criminal repercussions, not go to these things.
Dude, yesterday, last night, walking home.
Are you concerned by the rise in marijuana use and other drugs you see being employed right here in the park?
No.
No?
No. I'm not worried about marijuana use. I don't think the people that are doing these crazy things with guns are using marijuana. They're using either worse drugs or they're in psychosis and they need mental health help.
I was here.
Shout out to just laughing off the idea that it's marijuana. I think some of the people he talks to have a much better grasp of what's going on.
Under Giuliani too, and I saw the absence of public drug use seemed to be the norm then, and now it's everywhere. And I'm not just talking about weed. Like, there's strung out heroin looking people all over Manhattan.
But when you learn, as I did recently, the Aurora shooter, Gabby Gifford shooter, the shooter in Texas, the Parkland shooter, all young men on marijuana. Oh, come on.
They all drank water too. Oh my gosh, is water causing these things? Like, I don't. It's clearly not marijuana that is causing those shootings, and it's so silly to try and draw that connection when there's no scientific basis for it. That's the thing. Like, if there was evidence to back it up, that'd be one thing.
Psychotic connection here. The studies
come on. No, I'm not buying that.
I don't think marijuana is that big of a deal. I think that we have a lot more problem with mental health, that people can't get prescription drugs that they should be on because the society we've built is unlivable for most people.
Can you
look at just some really good respondents here? Not all of them, but some people they got a better idea of this.
Drug safe?
And no, absolutely not. You can't drug safely.
It's a Democrat approach, which is the destruction of the quality of life for conservatives and for law-abiding citizens.
Or
yeah, not all the respondents were great, but some of them were.
So many of these New Yorkers do not see the connection between the criminality they're experiencing and drug use. They dismiss it. But according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, the high THC in marijuana today is 4 times as potent as 1995's version. And a Denmark study shows a 4-fold increase in psychosis and schizophrenia among pot users over the last 20 years. So it's not a stretch to see the...
All right, so let's take those for a second. One, THC being more potent doesn't tell us anything. That doesn't tell us anything about a connection to crime from marijuana use. So that's silly. He brought up the Denmark thing. So the closest has ever been found is there have been correlational things that have been found between like marijuana and like psychosis. No causal link has been shown. It is interesting that he mentioned Denmark, that the study was from Denmark, because we think of a lot of the Scandinavian countries as more progressive, and in a lot of ways they are more progressive than the United States. In terms of drugs, not really though. Marijuana is still illegal in Norway, for example. In Denmark, when I was in Denmark, obviously I met some people and I was talking to some people about marijuana, and they said it makes you go crazy. So there are, like, not everything about Scandinavia. It's not a utopia. Whenever we talk about Denmark, Norway, Sweden, they are not utopias. In certain regards, they still have interesting beliefs, particularly about drug use, which is weird because you just go a little south. And then you have Amsterdam, which is much more like, in the Netherlands, when they have much more like liberalized policies surrounding drugs. So, and Portugal, if you go even more south, then you have Portugal, which has some of the better drug policies of any country.
Well, it's more than not a stretch. This has been documented in study after study. And blowing off the connection between increased chances to get schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, to develop psychosis. I mean, we have many, many examples of this. We've had doctors on who've documented it and who treat it in emergency rooms. So, I mean, the New Yorkers you interviewed, some of them seem like they're great people, but they got to read.
I think, one, like I said, it's been almost 90 years since Reefer Madness came out. Almost 90 years. Yet in the year of 2022, they're still airing segments of Fox News where they're literally saying that marijuana makes you crazy. Like, that is what they're trying to say. 90 years, in a lot of ways, society has made progress on the issue of drugs, since, the war on drugs first began. But also there are still pockets that seem to be stuck in a different time period. Also, I think that, let's just say for the sake of argument, marijuana did do some damage. Let's say for the sake of argument that it did. Do you think Laura Ingraham would ever have anyone on talking about like the damage that alcohol does? All the damage that can be done to the body and all the violence that actually has been attributed to alcohol abuse. I doubt they would ever run a segment like that, which interesting, very interesting.
Understand more. Psychosis doesn't come out of nowhere, okay?
No.
Not usually.
But Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, sees this as a cash cow. He sees $1.25 billion in tax revenue once this is legalized and dispensed. Here's the problem. They tried this in Oregon. This almost got no coverage, Laura. In 2020, they passed a measure decriminalizing most drugs. And all you had to do was call a 1-800 number and you got a fine if you were possessing it.
Shout out to Oregon.
What? 1,885 people got fines. 91 of them called the hotline to get off the drugs. Today, Oregon is the most addicted state in the union. Almost 10% of people.
I think that, see, here's the thing, right? One, like, let's say someone's using marijuana, right? Like, because I frankly, I don't know of the study that he's citing there. Let's say someone's using marijuana. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, that's not necessarily... Like I don't use drugs. I don't drink. I've never drinking. I've never done any marijuana. I've never done any of that. But if somebody drinks on an occasion, if somebody smokes marijuana on occasion, that's not the end of the world. That doesn't like. And so I think that like I don't know. I don't. It's just crazy that they're still running segments like this.
All going down. It's all going downhill under the legalization effort. Raymond, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
All right, thank you, Sean Hannity. All right, guys, that will be the end of that.